Yeah. I referenced the Intercept when talking about Donald Trump, and they called him the most honest and deceitful president.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen the Intercept story that came out about the DC riot squad?
We talked about it, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
For those that are listening at home, we are good friends with the riot squad. They are awesome people. They come on the show every so often. Whenever there's like a big event, Richie and, you know, Jorge and the whole crew, they're here. And we talk about what happened. Like, hey, you were on the ground. Tell me your thoughts. And they're always very explicitly like, we're not political. We're not pro or anti. Like, you know, we can criticize violence and all that stuff. Richie's very, very like strict about like, it's not my political opinion. I'll tell you what they did. You know, like Antifa did these things. That happened. I was there. He told us about what happened in D.C. in January 6th. He was down there at the Capitol filming it, and he got smeared by the New York Times. They called him a rioter because he was there filming and his shirt came off. Anyway, The Intercept writes this. They make this 24-minute video claiming that the riot squad, our friends, are like right-wing misinformation to distort the facts and smear Black Lives Matter. So we have this from the National Review. They say we shouldn't need the riot squad, but we do, a response to The Intercept. They say, if you were lucky enough to get off the internet for any extended period of time last summer, you probably would have had no idea that cities across the country were being consumed by political violence on a scale unseen since the 1960s. If in May and June you limited your media diet to the major newspapers, CNN and MSNBC, you would have been unaware that intense property damage and physical violence was being perpetrated by rioters each and every night in Kenosha, Portland, and just about every other major city. And I want to point out in Kenosha, there's a video where an old man had a store, was being burned and looted. And when he ran up trying to stop people, someone bashed him over the back of the head with a rock, leaving him on the ground bleeding out. Yeah. They say extremist agitators, many of whom traveled from city to city looking for trouble, assaulted bystanders, destroyed businesses, and torched buildings. The only reason we know who was responsible and how they managed to run wild in formerly sleepy downtowns is because of journalists like Daily Caller's Richie McGinnis, Shelby Talcott, Jorge Ventura, and Town Hall's Julio Rosas. And we've had all of them in the studio, and I will stress they are good friends of the show. After New York Times reporters and cable news talking heads left the scenes of daytime protests, McGinnis, Talcott, Ventura, and Rosas stayed on the street to document the destruction that reliably followed. McGinnis got so close to the action in Kenosha, he rendered first aid to the man whom Kyle Rittenhouse fatally shot. You know what the Intercept did? They tried smearing Richie by making it seem like he was withholding evidence, because certainly he should have had video footage of what happened, right? Why didn't he release it? He was rendering first aid to a guy who got shot. He was like being a human being. And
not just a human being, but whether the person's bad or good, somebody willing to render first aid in a critical situation like that, that's a courageous person.
You ever see The Patriot with Mel Gibson?
Yeah.
And Mel Gibson's in his house, and he's got redcoats and Continental, Army, and they're all being rendered aid. We do this. We do this because we're good people.
Yep.
And then the bad guy, he was the British guy. He's like, kill them all or whatever, and it like made Britain look like extremists or whatever. They got really mad about it. But the point is, the bad guys are the ones who let you die. You know, like when the Joker's falling to his death, Batman always saves him. Because Batman's the good guy who doesn't want you to die. He just is trying to do right, even though sometimes it's hard decisions. They're going to say a year later, The Intercept's Robert Mackey seems upset the reporting done by the Daily Caller and Town Hall is inconvenient to his political agenda. In a transparent attempt at the sort of guilt by association that activists posing as reporters just love, Mackey lumps Talcott and McGinnis in with fabulists who posted deceptively edited clips of rioting on social media to stir up outrage, labeling the lot of them the Riot Squad. I'm sorry, I just got to point out, they call themselves the Riot Squad.
That actually is a cool name.
Yeah,
that's a cool nickname.
We had 3 of the crew here on the show, and I was like, what should we put? And I think it was Richie, right?
Yeah,
he was like the DC Riot Squad. Like I'm like, okay. Because they're journalists who are down there covering these things. And it's really the reason I bring this up is, for one, I am personally offended at the insult to good friends of this show. Like, we had Richie here hanging out rollerblading. He's like in one of the vlogs. Like, he's literally just a friend who's hanging out. He's a good dude. He's not super political. He's like a surfer guy, a skateboarder. And simply by doing journalism, they try to destroy him. That's the name of the game. I will also mention, I'm offended that we get no smears in this thing. They don't mention our third. I think I'm being somewhat facetious, but our third biggest clip from the show was Richie McGinnis telling the story of what happened in Kenosha, just explaining, here's what happened, here's where I was, and that's it.
That's because there was too much context in the clip. That's why you guys didn't get any love.
Right, because if they showed any of it, people would have been like, oh, he's straight up saying he's not political.
Exactly.
He's straight up saying, I have no opinion on Kyle and what's happening. It'll be fleshed out in court. Exactly. And then he sat here and we interviewed him and he said, here's what I saw, here's what happened. That's it. And that was a major, that's one of our biggest clips. And so I look to what they're doing. I used to do the same thing. I used to go down the ground and I report on all this stuff. It got dangerous. Of course, now the Intercept, Glenn Greenwald quit. It's become a vicious political monster full of lies and manipulation. And now real journalists have emerged that are threatening the narrative, defending the extremists. So going back to what you were talking about with Marxists taking over, that's why I wanted to talk about this. They can't have real journalists.
Yeah. The irony is, isn't that why the Intercept was made? Isn't that why Glenn Greenwald did this and found funding and did this, was so that we could have real reporting, so that people would do things without fear, and they would go after the real power structures that try to keep people from knowing what's going on? That's what it was for. And this is the group now who's divorced themselves so far from what their actual mission was that they're now attacking people who are doing it.
I'm sorry. You want to talk about an organization that divorced themselves from the mission? There's a group. It's called Free Press. I've known many of the people at Free Press for a long time. The name of their organization, Free Press. They would fight censorship and defend the First Amendment and the right to report and all that good stuff. And they have a website, freepress.net.
If they agree with you.
I remember when they used to be, I don't, it's been a long time, but I've interviewed people there. I had several meetings with many of the people who worked at this organization. And then one day I saw one of their top people who I had known for some time demanding censorship, that Alex Jones be banned. And I said, that's strange. Why are you advocating for censorship? I thought you were Free Press. Something happened to this organization where it became woke. And their mission was no longer about supporting free speech. It was about shutting down hate speech. How did that happen? I don't know. But you look at the Intercept and you look at how Glenn Greenwald, he's like, hey, we're doing the Snowden documents. We're going to make fearless reporting. We're going to start this organization. And it got so bad, the dude quit. Glenn Greenwald, who founded the Intercept, quit his own company. And now he's doing independent work. And they call him, you know, alt-right and far-right or whatever.
Which is hilarious because he's on the left politically. I mean, very clearly,
he's like
self-admittedly.
pretty far on the left.
And he disagrees a lot on policy with things that I would believe in, but he's what I would like my opposition to be. We can actually have a conversation on policy. We can actually find some kind of solution within our differences. Say, hey, we actually agree on this one part of it. Let's at least implement that. You can't do that when the other group of people behave the way that we see the current party behaving.
Or, I mean, whatever the Intercept is, I mean, this video was, look, in the video, the guy says, this guy, Robert Mackey, he's like, the videos they produce are distortions. And activists have taken up cameras to combat these distortions. Then he says, much of the footage we got from January 6th at the Capitol was from these riot squad people because the right trusted them. And I'm like, whoa, hold on. Either they're reporting both sides or it's a distortion. But it can't be both. And if it is a distortion, what this guy is reporting now, the Intercept has said that the footage depicted from these journalists on January 6th is unreliable distortions, not telling us the truth. Okay, let's get rid of it as evidence. The FBI shouldn't be allowed to use it. In fact, if one of these guys, like if I was one of these people on trial, whatever, I'd have my lawyer be like, Your Honor, take a look at this reporting from the Intercept. Clearly, these videos are fabrication and distortions, as the Intercept has reported. You can't trust these videos. Sorry.
Yep.
We don't know what happened.
Release the old ladies. You've gotten solitary.
Yeah.
Seriously.
It shows you that these people have no principles. They never did. But more importantly, it shows the divide between the moral frameworks of the disparate factions in the culture war. Why you and I probably have different politics on several issues. Glenn Greenwald clearly, but Glenn would easily have a conversation about all these things. We can disagree on policy, but when our moral frameworks are very similar, then we're able to have that conversation because the goal is actually to improve the system. When your ideology is built on just having power and oppressing those who oppose you, then you will lie, cheat, and steal to take whatever you want.
It also kind of highlights a problem in corporate law. This is a little bit of a side note, but that you can sell a company to a new owner with a new ethos, and they can have the same name, company name, but it's a different company. I mean, it might have the same IP, but the company is the people that run the company for the most part. I mean, that's what company is. So that disturbs me. Maybe we should change it so that you have to change the name of a company if it gets sold, because Disney's not Disney. Walt Disney's dead. Now
I'll be honest, I've never thought about that. It's an interesting thing to think about. You know, I think I'd have to think about that one in terms of like.
I knew a guy who had a cybersecurity company, and what he told me was there was a hostile takeover. The company was stripped and sold off for parts, basically. but it was still a publicly traded company. So then someone else who wanted to start a new company just bought it and then started doing probiotics. So it's like if you were an investor in this company and you were interested in cybersecurity, one day you woke up and they were selling probiotics and you were like, what? It's not the same company. Different product, different people, different money, different part of the country, but it is the same company on paper.
That's interesting. That's bizarre. I've never thought about that, but you're totally right that Disney's not the same company at all as what Walt Disney envisioned. Not even really close.
And the Intercept.
Yeah, and the Intercept.
Obviously 180 from what
100%
Glenn was looking to do.
I have been noticing that Glenn Greenwald now has this really unique position where he can critique the Intercept perfectly because he knows them inside and out. So he's been tweeting at them and he's like, you guys are doing this wrong, you know, this is unethical, and you've now put, you know, this target on the backs of these really serious, really invested reporters who've been
and they've
doing
worked
a really good
hard
job. They have
put themselves in so much danger, and I'm saying this as somebody like, I don't know them, I've watched their work, I've seen what they've done, I have not seen one thing from any of them that shows that they have a personal political persuasion to what's going on. Okay?
They actually try very hard to make sure it's not a part of the...
Which is like, if anything, you know, if I saw some people on the left doing that, I'd have respect for what they're doing. Yeah. You know, somebody like Glenn, he's at least open when he is being political.
Right.
About why and what the reasoning is.
Can't have the truth, man.
But,
how do you manipulate people? And so it's just the duplicitousness of this report from this Robert Mackey guy where he's like, they're distortions. And they're also the source of all the evidence from January 6th.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. You're full of it. I think the only clear determination is if people like Richie are going to cover the left and the right, and it'll be used as evidence against people on the right, he's clearly just a journalist.
100%.
He's just telling people what's going on. The problem is they like it when he makes the right look bad. They have to forgive that.
Yep.
They don't like it when he makes Black Lives Matter look bad. They have to condemn that.
The real problem is that real journalism is a threat to their ability to attain power, consolidate power, and keep it. Because if you have real journalism going on, you have real reporting that's unbiased, that is one of the most dangerous things to them. And that's why it's been all but eliminated.
If regular people knew what they were doing, it would be over. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem. So they need to do everything in their power to obfuscate the truth so that regular people don't know what's going on. I mean, you look at Kyle Rittenhouse, right? So I'm on Reddit and I see a story and it's like, Kyle Rittenhouse, blah, blah, blah. And the top comment is, the dude literally crossed state lines with a gun to hunt down protesters. It's not hard or something like that. And I'm like, none of that is true. None of it's true. He worked in Kenosha. It was someone else's gun. He was asked to defend a building. He rendered aid to some of the rioters. It's a complicated story.
Yep.
But in order to push your agenda, you need Kyle Rittenhouse to be the villain. You need the lies.
Yep. And who fired first?
It wasn't Kyle.
Yep.
It was
exactly.
I don't remember the guy's name, but he fired.
Yep.
It looks like into the air. It might not have been into the air. So a lot of people thought it was because there's a grainy footage where you see a flash and they think it's going up. But I read one report that said he actually fired directionally.
It doesn't really matter, honestly. He brandished, he fired, and if you have a weapon and you perceive that person as a threat, and then you have a mob of people there who want to hurt you, you have a duty and a right to defend yourself. You know, that's not hard to figure out.
I think Kyle will get life.
You do?
Absolutely. Look at you look at what's going on now with Chauvin and these other cops. Did you hear the latest?
Yeah, I feel differently about that than I do the Rittenhouse case. I think that on the Rittenhouse case, there's going to be somebody on that jury, hopefully multiple people, who go and look at this by the letter of the law and say, this kid was defending himself.
Maybe because
in the other case, I think they're gonna give him the worst in the Floyd case.
If it's the trial is in the Kenosha is 50-50 between Democrat Republican. So then you'll at least have someone on the jury being like, no, I'm not convicting this kid. So a hung jury at the very least. However, I think most people will probably just be cowards. And when they're in the deliberations, someone's gonna go, okay, so who doesn't want their house burned down? All right, guilty. All right, let's get out of here.
That is the biggest fear, which tells you everything about where we are in terms of what time it is during this color revolution. We're at the point where mobs run justice. So if we have mob run justice, what's the next step? What does the future look like for people if you don't stand up now? And that's my argument to people is like, now's the time to do it. Because if you're going to wait till people knock on your door, that's going to be too late.
This is my issue currently with police departments. We see it mostly in major cities, but I wouldn't be surprised if it comes even to Tennessee. What do you think is going to happen when in Kenosha, which is fairly Republican in it's like 50-50, they're burning down buildings. Mm-hmm. The police didn't stop them. It was for days they were doing this. So then regular people are going to say, I don't want my building burned down. Just make it stop. Throw the kid in jail. Whatever. Fine. I don't care. You look at these stories where, like in Milwaukee, the Black Lives Matter people were outside this guy's home. He brandished a shotgun through the window. The cops went into his house and arrested him while they cheered for this.
It's insane.
And that group of people, previously, someone in that group had set fire to another house they were protesting at. So this guy probably was actually scared and brandished a shotgun. Maybe he shouldn't have pointed it directly at them, but he gets arrested.
He was at his house, though.
He was in his own house.
Brandish all away.
Yeah,
Somebody's threatening your house, brandish away. In Tennessee, we have very clear laws about that type of thing. You don't even have to be inside the house to have things start to pop off. So
we're seeing this more and more, where the cops are going to sit down and there's going to be 3 or 4 cops and they're going to see a riot and they're going to go, what's the riot mad about? Well, some guy said, a racial slur. Well, what do we do? Well, he's allowed to do it. It's the First Amendment, but they won't stop rioting. If we arrest the guy, will they stop? They might. Just arrest the guy. And the cops are going to be like, sir, you're under arrest. That's what happened in Milwaukee. The guy was in his own home and they were outside of his house. People who had previously burned down another house or set fire to another house. They didn't burn it down, but they set fire to it twice. And so he's probably scared and he's the one who gets arrested. Look at the McCloskeys. They enter private property. They're walking on private property and they come out with guns and they're in trouble. Now, maybe people are going to be like, in Missouri, you can't do that, fine, whatever. In West Virginia, you definitely can. Mm-hmm. If people walk onto your property, you can walk up to them with your gun pointed and say, get off my property
Same
right
with
now.
Tennessee, 100%.
Yeah. So it's different in different states. I think it should be that if you enter my property, I can pull up my weapon and say, turn around right now or I will defend my property. In New Jersey, for instance, where we were before this, the reason we left is that they call it a partial castle doctrine, which basically means it's not. If someone breaks into your home, you are legally obligated to retreat from your own home.
Where?
That doesn't matter.
That's called fleeing. That's not
insane.
retreat. You retreat back.
So you're in your underwear, you're in bed, your door's kicked open, and you go, what do I do? Well, you can't use lethal force.
That's
Go into
insane.
the closet?
You have to leave your house. You have to
yeah.
leave your house. Only if you can prove you had no opportunity to leave your home safely are you allowed to then use lethal force to defend yourself, which means you'll be arrested, charged, and then you can argue to the judge why you were in your right to defend yourself in your own home.
In Tennessee, your car also counts as part of your castle.
Wow.
Oh, nice.
So somebody tries to get in your car, carjack you can shoot them in the face and you're good.
Yikes.
That's allowed in Tennessee.
In West Virginia, you're allowed to shoot to stop someone from entering your property, which is like, I always tell people, like, don't trespass out here, okay? In New York, people trespass and they laugh about it. I'm like, don't do that in West Virginia. I don't think anyone's going to shoot you because people aren't insane, but they'll be legally allowed to do it if you go into their property. So don't do it.
Yeah.
They'll probably just walk out with a shotgun and be like, you got 10 seconds. You know, off my property. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.